I've given stories in the past about people's encounter with the various Charleston money spirits, and these stories can either have happy endings in the case of Charles Fleming, or they can be kind of unfortunate in the case of another young woman that story that I told back in March. Now, just how far these stories date back, no one is quite sure. But there are tales of people being given pots of gold and other valuables somewhere around the early settling of the state. Now, initially, these were said to be spirits of settlers or colonialists who had buried their treasure or buried their valuables and then went off to fight a battle and never made it back home. The valuables were initially hidden because of the frequent attacks by other settlers and just people coming to outright steal their stuff. So they just dig a hole to a certain length, throw everything in there, and go on about their business. Some could return for their stuff, others weren't as lucky. Now, one of my videos, I talked about the ghost of a disembodied or pirate or someone like that along Edisto that supposedly would guide you to treasure. In this case, from this Federal Writers Project document, it was said that early settlers or anyone that had slaves would actually unalive their slaves and leave the spirit of the slave or whomever to guard this treasure. And the next part is graphic, but I am going to describe what they do. So, trigger warning, if it's too much, please feel free to just skip through this part or go to another video. When everything was ready, the servant who willingly gave his promise to his master was beheaded. The head of the servant is said to be thrown in first, then the pot of valuables, and the body thrown in after the pot. The place of the deposited valuables was marked by the planting of trees or orchards, pine or an oak grove, or some type of non conspicuous object. For years and years, the buried treasures would lay in its place undisturbed and guarded by the spirit of the servant. Now, it's said that when the guard is tired of its stewardship, then they go and tell someone, usually someone in their bloodline, where the treasure is buried. Now, the spirit in question will always give you the day or the evening and the time that you should arrive to collect said treasure. It says when the secret of the treasure is given, if you don't seize on the opportunity, it may not be presented again. And if you remember in one story, one woman was told that she could not speak until the treasure was fully out the ground. She spoke and it was. Information is from the South Carolina Federal Writers Project interviews. So, a Bible and a hymnal must be taken along with you, along with a watch, so you know the perfect time to sing and pray. There were also tools for digging and some other things that you would need to bring with you, and those needed to be placed in the correct spot as well. Now, if you had somebody with you, one person needed to be faced in a certain direction in order to sing and pray. And this needed to be done at specific intervals throughout this entire process. Now, according to some, there would be chaos or a myriad of supernatural things happening around you at this time. But if you heard voices asking you a question, you definitely did not need to answer those questions. Also, you would hear rattling of chains, and some people even reported seeing beasts. It really just depended on the spirit and how they chose to relay the information. But it is said that if you could get through kind of all of this craziness and withstand the horrors that you see, then the treasure would surely be yours. Now, the spirit would then give you a signal for you to begin digging, and that's your cue. Biggest thing to remember is that throughout the whole ceremony, not a word must be uttered unless it is the singing of the hymnals or the praying. And that is very, very, very important. And you can go back to part 2 where this video came from. And I believe it is the third tag video under that one that I tagged where you can listen to the story of the woman who spoke too soon and she didn't get it. Now, once the pot started to rise out the ground, you needed a strong man in order to punch a hole into the pot so that the air could hit the pot and what was contained and it could be released. And this still had to be done quietly. And since I'm running out of time, I have one more story of an encounter with the Charleston Money Spirit that you might enjoy. So stick around for that and hope you enjoy.